How did Michigan State do in the transfer portal for the spring cycle? They added some good players. They lost some other starters. We talk with Ryan O'Blennis about that, a little bit of recruiting, and more. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning into Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, comment below on YouTube. Let us know what you think of the spring transfer portal window for Michigan State football. Or if you're just listening to the podcast, hit us up at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Now, it's not just going to be me blabbing on and on just by myself this show. We got the one, the only Ryan O'Blennis of Spartans Illustrated joining us. Ryan, pretty relaxing few weeks here for you. You doing okay, man? Life's good?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I've slept much over the past couple of weeks, but who needs that?
No, we were talking yesterday, remember the days a few years ago, making content for college sports? April was just a barren desert, nothing to write about, a lot of countdown lists back in the day, but now, my God, April is just through the roof with opportunities to make content, so,
Those only colors, when we were at the only colors, we would literally just have to brainstorm for hours to get through an April, May content play in June, whatever. Now it's just nonstop. It's fun, but it's hectic and it's a lot going on.
It's top 20 best third quarters of Mark D'Antonio's era at Michigan State. Now, those days are gone. There's plenty to talk about, and we're going to get to it here right off the top in the first segment. The transfer portal, we're going to stick to just the spring window right now. Obviously, the winter window is very buzzing with some activity, but so was the spring for Michigan State. You've seen it all on Twitter, message boards, I'm sure, or even just conversations with your Michigan State friends out there, that the opinions range from, oh my God, Jonathan Smith has just burnt this thing to the ground, this program's going to fold within 2 years here, all the way to good riddance to those players. It's all good. There's nothing to worry about. So, Ryan, from 1 to 10, that's how we're going to do it here. 1 being not worried whatsoever, everything went according to plan, to 10, you're pulling every fire alarm possible. Where would you put Michigan State football after the spring transfer portal window here?
I'd still probably be at a 3 or 4.
Okay.
No more than a 5. When you look at what Michigan State with this new staff has done in the transfer portal, they've been very deliberate, right? I know we're talking about spring specifically, but even going back to the winter, everybody that they brought in are guys who can contribute. A lot of them are going to start right away or play a heavy rotational role. At the very least, these are really good depth pieces. They're not taking random flyers on guys that maybe you saw from previous regimes who aren't that they don't expect to contribute or don't trust to contribute if they have to.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, I know as of the last couple of days, there have been a few starters who have gone into the portal. Projected starters will say we don't know for sure. It's a new coaching staff, new things could have changed, but. Obviously, losing the defensive tackles and Simeon Barrow and especially Derek Harmon. And I think Harmon was one that caught a lot of people by surprise. But they went and got, Brandon Lane to replace them. And the defensive tackle market and the portal this spring window has been probably the hottest position, right? Those guys are getting paid, from my understanding. Yeah. And so being able to, there's no bones about it. Losing Harmon is not great.
Sure. Right.
And Barrow was a good player who started too. And, even Jonathan Smith was praising early on for his leadership, whatever. But bringing in a guy like Lane, coming from Stephen F. Austin, maybe not quite as well known, but a guy who you can come in, plug and play. Remember, they also got Daquan Dowse in the winter.
Yep.
Maverick Hansen, veteran, he's returning. I've been told that they're still looking to add at least one more defensive tackle, probably one more rush end as well. So, they're still looking, they're still adding pieces. Losing those two does hurt, especially Harmon, but they had contingency plans in place. They got Lane on campus pretty immediately and got him locked in. That's a huge underrated pickup.
Right.
Who's going to, come in and at the very least play a heavy rotational role, I think, make an impact. Losing Jaden Mangum, that's tough. The starter as a sophomore last year, he played a lot as a freshman too for injury. Obviously he's pretty thin. So there are durability issues with him, but he led the team in interceptions. And, he played in most games last year. So, he seemed to really love being at Michigan State. I think he's definitely going to have a lot of options in the portal. I don't think that the door is closed for a possible comeback.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but I think that if that's what both parties want to do, that could happen. We'll see. But he's definitely going to have other suitors. His brother Jaron entered the portal. They added Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams. So that's obviously something that maybe he felt recruited over, because Nate Carter is going to, still be in there splitting carries and stuff like
Certainly.
that. With Lynch-Adams but Lynch-Adams also a really good pickup. And then Gino Vandemark, another guy who played a lot last year, started some games, projected starter probably coming in. But you also got Gavin Brocious, if he's he's coming off a major injury,
right,
be in the mix. Big Dooley, Chris Phillips in the mix. And also don't forget, he committed in the winter, but he doesn't join the program until the summertime. But Luke Newman, transfer, coming in. So again, you got options. But outside of maybe 3-4 guys who were projected starters, when you look at the winter and the spring window, I think, and you look at the guys that Michigan State has added so far in the spring, the guys that they added in the winter, and knowing that they're still going to be adding several more bodies to bring in, I think overall it's going to end up being a net positive. We'll see. It's way too early to say how exactly it's going to play out, but this is a team that's won 9 games combined in the last 2 seasons.
Correct. There's something to that, right? Yeah. I mean, this is a rebuild. These are good players you want to keep, obviously, but at the end of the day, it's next chapter time, right?
So anytime there's a new coaching staff that comes in, there's going to be some roster churn. They're going to want to bring in players that fit their scheme, fit their system, that they have prior relationships with, and as you mentioned, keep the talent that's on the roster. Now that these guys have gone through spring, the coaches and the players, they have a better feel for each other, each other's coaching styles, the players' abilities, things like that. And there were some conversations, some honest conversations, I'm sure, after the spring of where everybody stood.
Yeah. And
you saw a lot of guys enter the portal who probably weren't going to see the field. I mean, they're, and guys like By Job and Andrew DePape, who are 4 stars, who, have the potential that you would have liked to see stick around and develop, but, were they going to see the field this year? I don't know. So
can I just really quick on By Job, actually, because I was going to take it there next, because you named the starters that are gone. It's not fun to lose starters, of course, but it is a small number. It just happens so quickly that it really seems like, oh my God, things are falling apart for some people out there. But you lost 4 starters, okay? Just like you said, and just like we said on yesterday's show, guys, Alabama has had 34 transfers so far since that new regime has started. Washington, new regime over there, 28 transfers. Michigan State is at 35 right now. Turnover happens at regime changes everywhere. This isn't anything shocking or alarming for Michigan State. Now, with By Job, the early reports are that he's taken 3 official visits. One's to Mississippi State, one is to Kansas, and one is to UTSA. And with all due respect, that's not necessarily Georgia, Texas, and Oklahoma, if you just want to take some blue bloods out there. And there's obviously, room and time to add more official visits, and there is time in his career to blossom into a good player. But early on, to me, those offers and official visits kind of shine a light on just how far away he was from contributing immediately, not just to this team, but for a lot of high-end Power 5 teams. So, I don't want to catch myself in a weird place where it sounds like I'm calling him a bum, but with the offers out there, that kind of reiterates what we're saying about how far he was away from playing on this field. Ryan, I want to pick your brain here about your favorite spring transfer portal window ad here in a hot second. But first, you need to talk people's ears off about Monopoly Go. That's right. We are taking a pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've already been talking about Monopoly Go all week, all month, really. But hey, guys, there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers that you could trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings and heist their vaults. That's right. You get to decide. You want to play alongside with your friends in a friendly way, or do you kind of just want to ruin their day over there? Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, go download for free right now on Google Play or the App Store. It's game on with Monopoly Go. Now let's drag him back onto the stage here. Ryan O'Blennis of Spartans Illustrated. And Ryan, we talked about the players leaving. Now there's been a good handful of players so far, still very early in this process, of guys that have been added to the team. Of course, Kay'Ron Lynch-Adams, like you mentioned, Brandon Lane, the defensive tackle, Ed Woods, who just committed on Tuesday to Michigan State. So far, what's been your favorite pickup for Michigan State in this spring transfer cycle?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think everybody that they're bringing in are, is very deliberate and guys that they want to contribute right away. But I think, the one who stands out to me immediately is the most recent one, Ed Woods, right? That they're a transfer cornerback, super experienced, great skill set. Probably one of the more highly touted cornerbacks in the portal. I think only 1 year eligibility left, but they needed help. Michigan State needed help at the cornerback position for 2024. So they went out and got an impact guy who's probably going to, start right away, or at the very least, I think, play a lot of snaps, rotate in a lot. And he had a good relationship with Demetrius Martin from the past. I think that played a big key in his decision. And anytime you beat out Alabama, and I know it's not Nick Saban's Alabama anymore, but still, the prestige that comes with Alabama. And, my understanding is Alabama needs cornerback help too. That's a big win for Michigan State. Another guy, so Brandon Lane is another guy who I think is going to come in and play a lot of snaps. And, obviously Lynch-Adams, like I said, he's going to make a big impact on offense. The other guy who we haven't mentioned yet, Anthony Jones, I think he's going to come in and play that position, the Indiana transfer. And hopefully make an impact there. At the very least, you're adding to that room with a capable guy who's played, he's got a lot of college games under his belt, could be a part of helping this defense help turn around, helping the team. But so far, all of these additions look really good on paper. We'll see how it is, in real life come the fall. But I think Woods is probably the one that stands out most right now.
I'm going to go with Brandon Lane here. And obviously, all three can share the podium for first place so far in this contest that we've just made up. And maybe it was Brandon Lane, too, just because of how quick they turn things over there. With Harmon leaving, they got Brandon Lane on campus and to commit within the week. And that is just savvy GM work by Jonathan Smith here because, look, Jaden Mangum leaves, and I should have jotted the kid's name down. I thought I remember him on the top of my head, but they offered a safety almost immediately after. So, it is just next man up on guys that aren't even on the team. They have a board somewhere with names that they are interested in once someone goes. So, and there's obviously been way more GM work than just adding guys to the team because, this is something that we didn't get around to talking to about yesterday, but Jonathan Smith, just the way he's handled the portal, I think has been fine, especially with guys leaving too, because look, I've said many times, if I had a kid or if I was advising a kid, I would say, hey, take a dip in the portal, see what money you can get out there. And if you like your school, come back and see if they can match it. Because just like in the real world, Ryan, the best place to get a raise is by shopping around. Now, however, if you shop around, you get that raise from your employer, and then you go 3 months later back to your boss and saying, hey, rent's due again, I would like another raise. I think the boss in the real world is going to tell you to buzz off and hit the bricks, and we're on to the next person here, which is kind of maybe what happened here with a few kids. But hey, look, it's on to the next person. He's not going to stand for any shenanigans here on one side. And on the other side, once those shenanigans unfold, he will bring someone else in, lickety split like that. So yeah, it's been some good battles. One for Jonathan Smith so far between Brandon Lane, Ed Woods, like you said. And hey, still plenty to come. I do want to bring up one guy that potentially might be visiting, Ryan. Maybe you have more info to share on this, but Jay'Vier Suggs. Hey, this is a local kid out of Grand Valley State. Might be visiting this week. Now, this is a 6'3", 290-pound defensive tackle. He has already visited Florida State, Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Kentucky. And he just tweeted out today, actually, that Michigan just offered him too. So a lot of competition for this defensive tackle out of Grand Valley State. But any intel on what is in his future as far as visits go?
Yeah, just to kind of put a caveat on that, I talked to both him and sources at MSU, and both have indicated to me that it's not 100% set yet. If everything comes together, then yeah, the plan is for him to be on campus Sunday.
Okay.
And I think if that happens, that'd be a huge opportunity for Michigan State. Like I mentioned, they're still looking to add another defensive tackle, and Suggs is probably the quickest riser I've seen in the portal.
Yeah.
Offers from like every Power 4 basically, and like you said, at the Michigan offer today, he's been visiting a lot of different places. He was just at Wisconsin. I believe he's going to Kentucky and Florida State as well this week. And I want to say he was at Arkansas already. Yeah, he's been well traveled. Right out of Clarkston High School, like you said, Grand Valley State, and. Yeah, I mean, he'd definitely be a good addition. I think he was second team all GLIAC last year. Defensive tackles aren't always going to be racking up the stats because they're often asked to, eat up block, eat up space, take on double teams, things like that, depending on whatever scheme they're in. But yeah, I think he had like 7.5 tackles for loss last year, 5 sacks, like 21 tackles, something like that. And he's, like I said, just really kind of been rising up the ranks here in the portal with a lot of interest. I think he also had like 4 passes defended, a forced fumble or 2 last year. So, he's a big guy who can disrupt things. And again, they still need to add depth in the interior there in the defensive line. So, yeah, you would be a big pickup if so, but there's a lot of competition for him. And,
tons.
We'll see if they even get him on campus. If he does visit Sunday, I don't know what other visits he has lined up after that. He could be coming to a decision fairly soon after that. I'm not quite sure. So, Michigan State could have a chance to make one of the final impressions on him if they get him in late. And we'll see. You were mentioning, just a couple minutes ago too, the GM work that Jonathan Smith's been doing.
Yeah.
And Cole Moore, the general manager of MSU, Michael Doctor, and those guys behind the scenes who, are working, Hicks and Levy and Austin D'Arnaud and all those guys, D'Armond. And so, those guys have really been putting in a lot of work. So we'll see where it goes. But like you said, yeah, they have all these guys on their board and they have contingency plans for their contingency plans. And
right.
So yeah, it's not, if you're a Michigan State fan, you're watching, like we were talking earlier, all of this kind of like portal activity going through, and you see a few of these starters going through. And it's concerning, especially if you're not like paying attention as closely to everything that's going on. But remember too, that the new staff is here to lay their own foundation, build their own culture, bring in the guys that they want. So yeah, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind, that they're going to build this thing the right way. It is a rebuild. It might take a year, 2, 3 years, whatever, to find success. You saw Smith and a lot of the current coaches on the staff now be able to turn around an Oregon State program that was, had won 1 game before he got there rather quick. Again, you don't know. We don't know yet until we actually see the results in the field. But I don't think it's time to panic just because, a few guys hit the portal, and it's just the state of college football now is just wild west. Everybody, like you mentioned, they're getting advised to go into the portal, see what kind of money they can get. Some guys that might be they're buried on the depth chart or playing time or whatever it might be. Kids have different reasons for entering, but it's until some kind of guardrails, legislature, something gets put into place, this is just what it's going to be like for a while. So
fun times. Yeah, no, I hear you. The only thing we can grade him on so far is what he can do in the offseason, and this is one of hopefully many off seasons. I understand that, but it just seems a lot more clean and organized here so far as how things are structured here. We're going to get into the recruiting side here in a hot second because, hey, Michigan State just got a commit over the weekend that you have been talking with for quite some time here, Ryan. But first, need to talk everyone's ears off about Gametime, my favorite ticketing app out there, guys. Gametime is the best for so many different reasons, and my favorite, you guys may already know this, it's for how much money they will save you. Now, there's two different types of people in this world. Ones that plan ahead. Let's say you're going to go to a theatrical performance or a comedy show or, hey, a sporting event later on in the week. Just hop on Gametime throughout the week and catch their flash deals that they have on tickets. Now, the other type of person, which I can be many a times, is the procrastinator. Let's say that, okay, well, I'm going to the game. I'm actually walking to the stadium right now, but I don't got tickets for this thing. Well, lucky you, hop on Gametime because their last-minute ticket deals are also second to none. You can score some great seats at low prices over at Gametime. And speaking of saving money, guys, they want to help you out right off the bat. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's all one word, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Ryan O'Blenis just doing fantastic work over at Spartans Illustrated, especially in the recruiting realm. Charles White, linebacker out of Orchard Lake St. Mary's, he commits to Michigan State, and this is a guy that you're familiar with, right? I mean, you've been talking with him. You had a great piece, so give us a skinny on Charles White. We gave a little bit of info on him to start the week, but you're the guy that knows the most about him between me and you, so what do you got for us?
Yeah, so, Jonathan Smith was hired, I think it was like November 25th, something like that, 2023. Yeah. Within a week, I believe, he offered Charles White, some other Orchard Lake St. Mary's guys. It was clear right away that they wanted to build a pipeline with in-state schools, and Orchard Lake St. Mary's was one of those. They offered several kids from there. Yeah. And with White in particular, he was, I've been talking to him pretty much ever since then. He was a guy who went to the junior day visit in February, and then he showed up to East Lansing at least three times during spring ball, got an official visit set, everything. It was clear he had a lot of interest in Michigan State, pretty much from the get-go. And as an in-state kid, I think that means a lot to him being able to play at Michigan State. He's a kid who's played a fair amount of safety too, for Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and also linebacker. He's going to project as a linebacker in Joe Rossi's Michigan State. And, talking to him, he feels he's a perfect fit for that system because, St. Mary's runs something very similar in high school, in his high school game. So he's playing in that now. When he arrives in East Lansing, he's going to be pretty familiar with a lot of the system and concepts. Obviously, there's probably going to be a lot more to it at the college level, but he's going to have that foundational knowledge, and he's built a really strong relationship with Rossi, with Jonathan Smith. He's a guy who can go sideline to sideline, make plays. He wants to come up and make the hit and tackles. And he's just, somebody who they were really high on from the get-go, somebody that they identified, like I said, pretty much right away before Rossi was hired even.
Right.
Most staff was even in here. I think it was Smith and I want to say Keith Bonifa, who went to St. Mary's pretty early on and started connecting with these kids, and they offered him then. He's, somebody who I think he kind of likes to thrive on physicality. So, and he called himself, when I was talking to him, a field general. So, definitely the traits that you're looking for in a linebacker. Definitely a priority target for Michigan State, who was at, one of the top guys on their linebacker board that they were able to lock in. He's now going to be putting his recruiting hat on and recruit some of his other Orchard Lake St. Mary's teammates like Bryson Williams, like Jaden Savory, Antonio Johnson, those guys. And, even some other in-state guys he mentioned to me that aren't at a school that he wants to bring in. He's really going to be helping with that. And, so now, Michigan State's got two commits and, I think in a week or whatever it might have been, because they got Leo Hannon, I think on like April 22nd, something like that. So, now going into official visits, you're really going to start seeing things start to roll with the 2025 recruiting class. I know it took a while. Some of that was deliberate, though. These guys were a brand new staff, just building connections and getting kids on campus throughout the spring, and figuring out their board and who they want to bring in. I think, maybe last time I was on your podcast, we talked about, should we be panicking about the 2025 class? And I was like, no, this is always going to be the plan. Go through spring, get familiar with people, build the board, and then you're going to start seeing those roll in. So now that there's a better idea of all of that, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more activity coming up.
And let's switch sports here just to end this thing, because about 90 seconds before we started recording here, Ryan, they dropped the conference opponents for the Big Ten next year. Now, this isn't dates. This is just who are you only facing at home, who are you only facing away, and then 3 home and home series. So really quick, everyone, get a pen and your legal pad out and jot all this down. Home games for Michigan State next year: Indiana, Nebraska, Oregon, Penn State, Purdue, Washington, and Wisconsin. Now, away games only: Iowa, Maryland, Northwestern, Ohio State, Rutgers, and then a West Coast swing: UCLA and USC. And then your 3 home and homes are going to be against Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota. My instant thought is, okay, cool, West Coast swing, but every school has a West Coast swing. This is just on first glance. It's either Oregon and Washington you're going to go out and see, or USC, UCLA. That's how they paired it up a little bit. And then my second immediate thought was, okay, that's not too bad with your home and homes. Obviously, you do like the Michigan rivalry in there, face them twice per year. Illinois should be a good team next year. I don't know if I want to face them twice, but at least you get them at home. But hey, for a nice little cherry on top, no disrespect to the Gophers out there, that is a team I do want to face as many times in the season as I possibly can next year, as me and you, Ryan, are both actually playing for Minnesota next year. That's how desperate they are. So I do like seeing the Gophers twice. Again, no disrespect to Ben Johnson and his program, but those are my takeaways. Just, okay, that's our West Coast swing, and all right, this is who we're going to face twice next year. Not too bad. Again, like 90 seconds before we started recording. So do you have any grand sweeping take on this little conference matchup here? Not so much.
I mean, I'm in agreement with you. It adding the West Coast teams in gives it a new kind of flavor this year. So it makes sense. You're going to have to go out there twice, and then 2 of those West teams are going to have to come over here twice. So that's definitely a different element. I have been, pretty curious about how this whole travel thing is going to work with the former Pac-12 schools ever since it was announced they were joining.
Right.
I think it is good for the conference. They're big brands, and good competition. But yeah, it is interesting to see how that's all going to shake out. Like you said, obviously Michigan twice on the schedule, home and away. That's how it's got to be with this rivalry.
Yep.
Minnesota is a team you do want to see twice, as you touched on, they've lost quite a bit. And so, yeah, I mean, either way you slice it, in basketball, you're going to have to see most of these guys at least one time. So whether that's home, obviously the last couple of years and pretty much ever since forever, Michigan State's going to play better at home. That just makes sense. You got the I-zone there, and they've struggled on the road a bit the last couple of seasons. So, going to a place like Maryland where they've struggled a bit lately, but they won there, this past season. That's an interesting one. And
yeah, Maryland will be tough this year too. That's going to be a tougher route than it was last year, but we'll see. You can't get too picky about it though. I feel like I feel like it's an okay draw. Like Iowa, and I'm just going to go through the road games right now. Like Iowa, Maryland, okay, that'll be tough. Northwestern, the ghost of Boo Boo, he's finally gone. Ohio State, yeah, that's going to be tough. Rutgers, they'll be strong this year. They got 2 5-stars, but 5-stars don't always translate like that to the college game. But nevertheless, a Peichel coach team is going to be a tough one. And yeah,
slower with a 5-star.
Yeah. And then the West Coast swing too. That's going to be the fascinating thing to see how they handle the West Coast swing. I imagine, like, common sense says that it'll be like, all right, you played USC on a Tuesday, and then Friday or Saturday you'll face UCLA. You'll just stay that whole week over the West Coast. Like, if they're going to face UCLA like early January, and then they got to fly back out to face USC like a month later, like that's where we're going to reach like gong show levels of disarray in the Big Ten. But I would hope that it's going to be like, all right, we'll just get a nice little hotel for 2 or 3 or maybe 4 nights out there and just enjoy yourself some palm trees in between games. But again, it's going to be a few months before we really get the actual dates and actual schedule down. So, yeah, I just wanted to leave people with that little note right there. Just a home, away, in your home and homes right there. So there we go. There we go. Also, Brent, I got to credit you too. Earlier, you said Power 4. I said Power 5. It is going to take me until 2027 to get this right, man. This sucks. I got to rewire my brain. Like, oh, you're already on it, though. You're a sharp.
Power 5, Power 4. Either way works for me. It's just, now you got the Pac-12 that just completely dissolved, and you got two of those teams playing in the Mountain West. So I guess now the new term is Power 4. But either way, use both. Use both.
Yeah. You got it hammered down. You got many things hammered down. Again, you're doing great work over at Spartans Illustrated. So, folks, go subscribe to the fine people over at Spartans Illustrated. No, we appreciate you, Ryan. Thanks a lot for hopping on. And, folks, hey, we're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to be speaking with a new guest of the show. One I'm very excited to talk with. It is Jason Nick of the Couch and the Rude podcast. We got a request from him to join the show, so I reached out, and he said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So, stay tuned for that tomorrow. But until then, folks, love you all. Go Green.